Cafe have been working very closely together on a slightly important tournament that's happening quite soon here in France. So without any ado, I welcome you to the stage and hand over to you, Neil. Tell us what you've been up to.
So it's been, I would say, maybe more than 2 years now that Joyce and I have met. We've had the keynote speeches, we've had some fantastic programs. What I wanted to give to you right now and today was how it translates within the operations. How does it filter throughout UEFA operations using Euro 2016 as an example? So really, without positioning ourselves, but relying on the expertise of CAFE on how people with disabilities should be welcome in the best possible way. This is our daily task, and this is how it filters within each operational project in collaboration with Patrick Gasser and his team, and of course CAFE on a daily basis. So as we go forward, can you, this one?
Yeah, just that one, push that one. Push it harder a bit.
Okay, so just to contextualize the tournament, because maybe not all of you are familiar with what UEFA Euro 2016 is. So basically, the event will run from the 10th of June to the 10th of July 2016. What we expect for the very first time 51 football matches to be hosted in 10 cities. We expect 2.5 million fans, 1 million from them coming from abroad, and on top of that, fan zones will be deployed by host cities. So we also have a representative from one of the host cities. So really our challenge is not just to think about the stadium itself, but from the moment where people will arrive in the host cities to the moment where those people will find their seat and their correct seat in the best possible way. So just to really present you our different social and environmental priorities, because respect access for all is one of the 8 priorities we push and we have defined. So I do not need anymore to conceptualize what access for all means. Respect diversity, and we've had Pyra being here. We also push to implement a zero tolerance policy against all forms of racism and discrimination. Respect fan culture, we also have FSE today present in order to welcome, advise and support football fans to UEFA Euro 2016. And the last social priority is respect your health, ensuring that, like in 2012, like in Brazil, in 2016, football stadiums will be tobacco-free. And this we will also ensure in order to make your life easier and to avoid having other football fans, for example, smoking within disability toilets like we have seen in the past. And there we are taking all measures possible to avoid that, and we will be very strict if this event is taking place. So as we move forward, we also have the environmental priorities, which relate as well to fans traveling around. So how will public transport and mobility be organized? And this is another example of how we collaborate with the host cities to ensure that access for all is also really filtering and being cascaded within the host city mobility plans. Waste management, I don't need to go too much into detail. Energy and water optimization, and the last one, sourcing of product and services. So how and where does all the product and services that we buy come from? How are they produced? Let's now jump in what we mean and how we translate access for all within the operations. So we want to coordinate and monitor the operational implementation of access for all measures in partnership with CAFE and the stadium. What has been done so far? So for us, it was very key that France was also involved, and CAFE from the very beginning pushed for that. So having local specialists, local coordinators who had that specific knowledge of French stadiums. We have been pushing for recommendations of CAFE to be taken into account when new stadiums were either being built or renovated. And also we're pushing for having 60 volunteers being recruited and dedicated within the 10 stadiums to access for all. So there will be people there to help also the audio description, who will hopefully stay there as a legacy in terms of knowledge and experience and welcome. And this is really something that we think on a human, so tangible and intangible aspect will remain as a legacy. We're being very honest as well, and I think Jacques Lambert and Joyce as well agree, and all of you who will go to the stadiums, there are improvements to be done. And this, together with CAFE, and I think it is also the key strength of having CAFE working with us, but not directly neither being part of UEFA, because together we can push the stadiums with the state and with other stakeholders. So we believe in stakeholder engagement, not just having UEFA, but having CAFE, having the state, having the host cities, all together working, and having all of you from all your different stakeholder background pushing together to enhance the experience and enhance the infrastructure of the stadiums. So how is it conceptualized? As I say, this is a collaboration with CAFE. We are not experts in Access for All, but we are experts within the operations. So when CAFE together edicts with UEFA some minimum requirements, we push together and we listen to their expertise. So we do not position ourselves for whether fans should be segregated or not. This, we rely on their expertise and we follow, and this is how we work together in collaboration. So what we do is we establish some seating requirements and amenities for wheelchair user positions. What we define with CAFE as easy access position for limited mobility, blind, partially sighted, deaf or hard of hearing, learning disabled, and the list goes on. I think Irina before was mentioning this. First of all, before starting implementing, we have to have a very good understanding of the framework, of the legal framework. When we as UEFA, as the organizer, go to France, before trying to set minimum requirements, before trying to upgrade or before trying to give out recommendations, we need to understand how does the French legislation work. So there is just a very short extract. In a very also honest positioning, currently the French legislation is, as Emmanuel was saying before, has done a lot of progress, and we believe that it was a challenge for us, because when we went to some stadiums and we compared with UEFA/CAFE minimum requirements, we were still not being aligned together. So we have to take into consideration not only the legal framework, the existing infrastructure, but then together, I think on top of that, we can build and we can leave as a legacy what we as UEFA Euro 2016 try to push for. There is also the technical report from the European Committee of Standardization, where CAFE as well and UEFA are aligned on, where France ratified, but when we look into practice, it is also something we find challenging. As Jacques Lambert was mentioning before, Access for All was part of the bidding process, and of course we follow very closely the official homologation procedures of stadiums. So when we come after this, we also have to take into account that all requirements are maybe not necessarily matching what the legal framework wants. However, it does not stop us from wanting to push together in order to enhance those minimum standards. So, once the framework is done, here again, how do we proceed in order to edict some recommendations and push for enhancement? So together with Joyce and the team from CAFE, we went all around the stadiums, and we basically, under the snow, I was in a t-shirt, not on that picture, during winter, we went in very detail within each stadium to really be able to assess the existing facilities in order to then enhance them. So what is the outcome? Well, very honestly, on a generic point of view, sightlines are not very adapted. So how can we react as an organizer when the current existing facilities do not enable the perfect sightline? And there on the picture, you can see me I think it was the only time I was wearing a jacket actually, and I'm quite tall, but if I were to stand up in front of Joyce or others amongst you, you would not be able to see very clearly what is happening. So how do we then work as an organizer? Potentially by already reporting that to the stadium, because they don't necessarily, when the architectures have built or when they do operate the stadiums, they do not always think about fans standing up. And there very clearly you can see, but maybe what we can do as an organizer is we can shut down, so as we say, kill seats in front of the people with disabilities in order to enhance these sightlines. This, another point, is an example of what we faced in one of the stadiums we went through. And as you can see, the wheelchair positions are within the vomitories. So I do not need to detail more. This is just facts. So based upon those facts, we have a very strict report, and I don't think, and Joyce can testify, together the UEFA report is not as expert as their report, but together we report exactly those same issues to the stadiums, and we're very happy to share them as well in order to push it further. We have noticed that a lot of them didn't have no drop-off points in 50% of stadiums. We have also noticed that companions are not always sitting next to disabled spectator. They are either in front or behind. A lot of stadiums have weak signage. In certain stadiums, no wheelchair user position in the hospitality nor media tribune. And we have missing signage for partially sighted and blind spectators. When we look at the tactile surface or the color contrast, there are a lot of obstacles as well we face. And then I would say final big point that we wanted to raise, that 30% of stadiums allow access to general public in lifts. So we also believe that this is a measure that we can work on in a very pragmatic approach. Not all of this is negative. I just wanted to show you what was the outcome of the initial report that we went through in order to work together with CAFE, with the stadiums, with all the stakeholders to make Euro 2016 accessible in the best conditions. So as we go further, this is, for those of you who cannot see that in detail, this is the outcome. So we did a benchmark of the 10 stadiums, where we, on the first top line, we calculate the capacity. Why do we calculate the capacity? Because upon this number, within the UEFA/CAFE minimum requirements, we expect at least a minimum number of positions to be there within the stadiums. So these figures can be found in the 1 year to go report that you can download on UEFA.com, where these are facts. So let's take the example of Lille, for instance. So Lille has a capacity of 50,000 spectators. What CAFE/UEFA edict in its minimum requirements is 230 wheelchair user spaces. What we will offer for the Euro, you will see a positive surprise after, but we align ourselves. And what there we can see is for easy access, we calculate a ratio of more or less 50% of seats also reserved for them. What you need to take into account is on top of that, a companion will come. So these figures double. And please consult all those figures so you know how many seats, how many easy access seats as well are envisaged for Euro 2016. In other stadiums, we have pushed the renovation to have and offer higher number of seats. However, you can imagine that rebuilding a stadium or renovating within our scope, coming and renting the stadiums for more or less 2 months or a few games is a challenge. However, we do not stop on a daily basis with Joyce to push them in order to enhance their stadium capacity. So now is the moment where we want to show from this situation, what do we concretely do? So tickets. A lot of people might ask us, so what do you do in tickets? And I think that was a point which was raised before within one of the presentations. So in order to have people coming to the football match, we believe that we have to offer a price which makes them come and discover the existing facilities. I take the example of Nice. Nice has fantastic facilities. Of course, Joyce will always find that little detail to work on, and this is what we will push, and we expect her to push us in order to enhance. But let's take the example of Nice. Nice has fantastic infrastructure, but the local disability network does not yet know upon what is existing. So we hope by offering attractive price conditions, fans will come. And I think the big legacy of Euro 2012 was that after the Euro, fan came again, because they had the infrastructure, but they were just not used, as you were saying, within your 50% of fans not coming to any game, they were just not used to coming. So by offering a price which is aligned on category 4, what is category 4? Basically, it's 25 euros within group stage, and until the final as well, where there we align as well, it is a bit more expensive, but the final will be 85 euros. So I think there, in terms of price alignment, we make a very, very big effort. And on top of that, every disabled fan will come or can come with a free companion. Because what we believe is we can put all the efforts in place to welcome those fans in the best possible way. However, we will not replace physically a free companion to come, to help, to assist, and to also come and exchange with us, the volunteers, the stewards, on how we can make it better, make this experience better. So I was speaking about welcoming, and I think I've already mentioned a bit. There we want to be excellent, where we need to improve, together with all other stakeholders, the infrastructure. On the welcome, we want to be excellent. Of course, we might not be, and there will be cases where we cannot monitor that all the volunteers and all the staff will be excellent, but this is our objective, and we have no excuse to not set this as an objective. So we will have 60 volunteers, so 6 volunteers per stadium, only dedicated to that. So that doesn't mean that the other 6,000 volunteers will not help either. And we want the staff as well. So we want the stadiums to be accessible, the concessions to be accessible. We want signage to enhance, because signage, for me, there's no excuse to not be excellent. We will be excellent, and we will try as well to work towards a signage which can be left there as a legacy, because when we go around the stadium with Joyce, we see signage which is dropping, we see signage which is missing, which see that some places, in some dangerous places, there is no signage. And there, I don't think we have any excuse not to be excellent. Of course, as I was mentioning before, stewards, so all workforce will be trained within a generic e-learning module to what access for all means. So if somebody is there, present within the organization of the operation of the Euro, he should have the experience and he should have the knowledge on how to help people with disabilities. So in terms of positions, wheelchair user position, there we have tried to align on UEFA CAFE minimum standards. In a very honest way, we did not achieve that in all stadiums. However, we did push and we keep on pushing, but together with CAFE, we reached an agreement on what we thought could be minimum number of position, but they would be excellent in terms of service. So Toulouse has 80 positions, so this is the minimum which will be offered to fans traveling to UEFA EURO 2016. And the maximum that we will have is Saint-Denis, where you will have 400 positions And this is, again, without companions. In terms of access for all, the minimum is 100 places, or, as we say, 50% of wheelchair minimum standard. In terms of audio description, and I think this is one where we will put a lot of energy in, is having 100% of stadiums offering audio description. And we want to leave this as a legacy like in a tangible and intangible way to the stadium. So we will train commentators, we will train volunteers, and we will leave the equipment so that all 10 stadiums will be able to offer this in the years to come. And also we have other different types of facilities like extra wheelchairs. If we need to request a buggy in case of special demand, this is something that we plan. And also, of course, we plan accessible parking. So for the general public, there is no parking spaces, yet we do an exception, and this is for people with disabilities. And within each stadium, and with Joyce, we have worked on the parking spots, the signage to come to the entry until they find their places. And as you see, it is not just about CAFE pushing UEFA, it is about now having each project, 37 operational project, taking its part of the game in ensuring access for all cascades within the operation. So we have, for example, sustainability, myself pushing as well, or being pushed by Joyce, being pushed by everybody. So I try as much as possible, because then I report to the CEO. So that also gives floor to the importance of the priority. So I try to moderate all demands and all needs and all reactions. And my aim is then to cascade that to the venue management, to the ticketing, to event transport, to event logistics, technical services, signage, security, and the list goes on. We want all operational projects to have an implication in what we mean by access for all. So just now, we were starting by the difficulties we face. We also want to be optimistic and positive by showing some key performance indicators and some highlights. So the first ticketing draw was held beginning of July, and this has been the key success factor for the overall UEFA Euro 2016 ticketing. On the media release, the success was tickets from disabled spectators. As Jacques was mentioning before, around 16,000 requests, including companions, have been done. We have been currently able to allocate around 8,000. However, there are still some tickets, of course, available to the PNA. So what is PNA? So Participating National Association. Once that the draw is done on the 12th of December, like the French Football Federation, all other qualified federation will be able to apply, because we have reserved a certain quota for their traveling fans. But on top, one of the personal objective I have, and I hope Joyce shares that, is to have 100% of sales for disabled fans. And if then it can lead to what we saw in Lille, because we've had a success in terms of ticketing sales. This is something we announced to CAFE, is that we had so many requests that we, from an operational point of view, we raised the minimum requirements of what we saw before, which was 230 positions in Lille. We raised it up to 300. For Stade de France, we had 290 minimum UEFA CAFE standards, and we raised it up to 400. So these are typically examples of the collaboration, the communication, and the positive legacy we want to leave in place. I very much thank you all. It's a touching moment for us, because it's really from going around the stadiums to today. I think we're seeing it building up, and I cannot wait to welcome you in the best possible way in Euro 2016. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.